Okay, today we are going to be learning 5-5 one-digit quotients, and you can find this on page 128 in your books. So go ahead and write this title at the top of your spiral on a clean page of paper in your spiral. And then I'm going to pose a question to you. So your question today is, suppose you need 250 yards of string to fly kites at a festival. String comes in balls of 75 yards. How many balls of string do you need to buy? So let's highlight the numbers that we are going to need to be using. And we know that we have 250 yards of string, or that's how many we need. And we know that each ball of string comes in 75 yards. So our main question they're wanting answered is, how many balls of string do we need to buy? So how would you solve this problem? We would have to use division. So we would have to say 75 divided into 250. Okay, now remember the title of this lesson is one-digit quotients. That means there's only one digit up here in the quotient or the answer of our division problem. So be remembering that. And so we need to ask ourselves, how many times does 75 go into 25? It cannot. So we have to say, how many times does 75 go into the whole 250? Well, I do not know off the top of my head how many times 75 goes into 250. So on the next piece of paper, or on a scratch piece of paper, I can just write out my facts of 75. So 75 times 1 we know is 75. 75 times 2, 150. 5 times 3 is 15. 7 times 3 is 21 plus 1, 22. And we're trying to get to 250. So let's try 75 times 4, just to be sure. 5 times 4 is 20. 7 times 4 is 28, plus 2 is 30. So 300. So we're trying to figure out how many times 75 will go in closest to 250. Closest, we can't do 4 times because, we can't do 4 times because 300 is too big. But we can do 3 times because 225 is closest to 250. So we'll say it can go in 3 times. 3 times 75, let's go back and look, is 225. Now I have to subtract. So I need to borrow and make this a 4, make this a 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. 4 minus 2 is 2. 2 minus 2 is 0. So our answer is 3 remainder 25. So let's go back to our question. We want to know, how many balls of string do we need to buy? Well, we know for sure we need to buy 3, but here are some remaining strings. So you can't just buy 25 strings, so we're going to have to round this answer up to say, well, we need 4 balls of string. So in this problem that we just did, we know here's 3 whole balls of string. We used all of those. We have to buy 4 because we need to get 25 strings out of this one, but we're not going to use the whole thing. We're going to use all of those though. Okay, here is your next problem that I'm going to give you. This is my little arena, and you can see the stage, and in this green area that's colored in, there's 64 seats. I want to pretend that this theater sold 428 tickets. So go ahead and write that down in your spiral. And A section in this theater has 64 seats, which we can see right here. This section has 64 seats. How many sections must there be to seat all of the ticket holders? So, what division problem do we have to do to figure that out? Yes, 428 divided in 64 divided into 428. So we need to write it out. 64 divided by 428. And I'm actually going to do this on a different page so we can have more room to work. Okay, so I know 64 cannot go into just 42. So I have to take 64 into the whole 428. Now, I don't know my 64 facts, and I don't know about you, but I need to write them out. So when I do this, I just go to a different area of my paper and try to figure out what 64 times what is closest to 428. So I'm going to do it over here. Let's just start with 6. So 6 times 4 is 36. 6 times 6, 36, 37, 38, 39, 396. So that is still too low. So let's try 64 times 7. 7 times 4 is 28. 6 times 7 is 42, plus 2 is 44. So that would be too big because we're trying to get to 428 or near it. So that means we have to use 6. So 64 can go into 428 6 times. The 6 goes above the 8 because we used the whole number in here. So it has to go right up there. All right, 6 times 64, we said, was 396. Now we need to subtract. So go ahead and subtract, and you should get 32. And I actually messed up right here because 6 times 4 is 24. So this should have been a 4. And this should be a 2. And then 6 times 6, 36, 37, 38. So this should have been 384. So I'm going to go back and change this to 384. Mrs. Clamors is losing her mind. Okay. And now I need to do 428 minus 384. So go ahead and solve that. So now I have it correct. 6 remainder 44. So if you remember my question back here, I asked how many sections are needed for all of these ticket holders to be seated. Well, 6 sections are needed for sure, but what does the 44 stand for? What's our remainder stand for? The remainder is that there are going to be 44 extra ticket holders. So these 6 are 6 sections that are filled, but then these are 44 extra people. So if we go back to our stage, we can say that this is one section. We could say, well, we need 6 in all, so we can say that section's filled, and then let's change this to section 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So all of those are filled, and then there's 44 people who are sitting in this section that is not filled completely. All right, so with this question, I'm going to ask you a lot of quiz questions along the way. So these are going to be a lot of quiz questions for you. So my first question to you is, what do I need to ask myself? Does 57 goes into what? That's my first question to you. Well, 57 cannot go into 55. 55 is too small. So we have to say 57, how many times does it go into 550? Do you know your 57 facts off the top of your head? Because I don't. So what do I need to do now? I need to start multiplying to see 57 times what gets close to this 550. So let's go to our next page and just start trying. So let's start with 5. 57 times 5. So 7 times 5. Go ahead and solve this. So you should have gotten 285. That's way too low because we're trying to get to 550. So let's move this number up. So let's go up to 57 times 9. Please solve that. And you should have gotten 513. And then we know 57 times 10. All you have to do is put the 57 down and drop the 0. So the closest we can get, the closest we can get to that 550 without going over is this problem right here. So we need to be using the 9. So 57 can go into 550 9 times. Where does the 9 go? At the end of the whole number we used. So in the 1 spot. So we need to put 9. And 9 times 57 was 513. Please do 550 minus 513 and tell me what you get. You should have gotten 37. So our answer is 9 remainder 37. So in order to solve these problems that only have one digit in the quotient, you do have to do some work with multiplication over here to figure out what you will be using as your quotient. So the ones I would like you to try on your own are on page 129. I would like you to try problems 13, 14, and 15. And then I would like you to pick the correct answers. You do not have to type them in this time. It will be a multiple choice question. Except for the last one, 15, you will have to type in your answer. But 13 and 14 will be multiple choice. So go ahead and write those in your spiral on a fresh page and make sure you bring your work tomorrow. And I will show you the answers here in a second after you are done typing them into your quiz box. Okay, so I'm going to go over the answers for problems 13, 14, and 15 with you. And I wrote them out so you can check your work versus my work to see if you made any mistakes where you went wrong, or if you did it correctly, make sure that I didn't do it wrong. So number 13, the answer you should have gotten was 5 remainder 38. And here's my work. You can pause this video and go ahead and check it. Especially if you got it wrong, check to see where you went wrong. 14, your answer should be 6 remainder 5. There's my work for that one. And for number 15, the answer you should have got is 6 remainder 82. So if you have any questions, bring those tomorrow. Double check your work, and I will see you in the morning. Have a good night. Bye.